So we are back in the Burnley Gardens, and this is what I'm about to do now and talk to you about. It's going to make more sense if you've seen Andrew Smith's video, or the video where I talked to Andrew Smith about the gardens and water management. But still, the key thing to get in terms of context is the gardens are complex. There's all different zones. We've got the native garden here. There's big old trees over 150 years old, and we're about to walk into a rainforest planting, so an area of Australian rainforest plants. And what I wanted to just show you is some of the things in the gardens that are edible, and that's by way of saying that in these really complex gardens, by complexity I mean not just the diversity of species, but the diversity of life forms. By life form I mean trees are one life form, and then you have shrubs, and then you have the herbaceous layer, and so what we have is this idea that we talked about with food forests, which is that you have strata, so you have layers, right? So what I talked to Andrew about was the fact that we work off an assumption now that these more complex plantings, and you get this with these historic gardens, or you get it in natural ecosystems, right, is something we all enjoy more. And we're in the middle of this pandemic, and these gardens have lost the people who work in the botanical corporate area, but there's been an increase of visitors just coming here to enjoy them. So if you think about having layers and strata as something that adds interest and stimulation to your enjoyment of a space or a landscape, then you think, well, could we have more interesting edible plantings? Now, it's not going to be like the food forest concept in the sense that the extremes of that idea are like, you don't have to have inputs, it becomes a self-regulating system. So I'm very sort of counter that idea because I don't think it's realistic. But what I think is realistic is that we can have stimulating landscapes where there's an edible element. And what I want to show you is that these old gardens with all the different zones actually do have some interesting edible species. So Sash is behind the phone right now. So thanks for coming with me, Sash. We'll just take people on a journey into the rainforest. Oh, look quickly. Very rare. It's actually a variegated Pittosporum undulatum. Not Pittosporum eugenoides from New Zealand, but actually our very own Australian rainforest Pittosporum undulatum. So here we go into the darkness. Now, strictly speaking, these little figs here are edible, Ficus coronata, sandpaper fig, but they're not ready yet. So there you go. You tick one plant already. Now, of course, super on trend are finger limes, so that's Citrus australasica. I always get that wrong. And so not many people realise that Australia actually is home to the greatest number of species in the genus Citrus, right? They're all from our rainforests. And so they are one of these classic plants that grows under the canopy of other plants. So they're a kind of spiky shrub in the mid-story. And unfortunately, there's no
dice.
No dice. Oh, here we go, little babies that have fallen off. So let's do the...
Any more?
So, yeah, there's one on the tree here, but here's one here, and I'm going to bite into it. Oh, it's pretty yummy. And I'm going to squeeze it.
It's almost caviar-like, isn't it?
It's very caviar-like. It's like squeezing a pimple, dare I say. Sorry about that. We'll edit that out. Too late. Okay, so Citrus australasica, finger lime. So it grows quite well in Melbourne. And now I think we'll go to... just I could say, for example, that you could plant ginger under here. You could plant edible ginger, native ginger that you can also eat. So if you were trying to create a kind of multi-layered rainforest planting that was edible, it can be done. But don't forget, as we saw with Andrew, you would have to irrigate to get production. And of course, if you take things out of a shady environment, you're likely to get more yield too anyway. So always keep that in mind. We'll go look at the tuna. collection of uninspiring sticky plants is actually a deciduous Chinese shrub, small tree, called Tuna sinensis. So it's related to, it's in the same genus as the Australian redwood, or red cedar I should say. It's deciduous, that's why it's looking terrible now. But in spring it has these really remarkable translucent pink leaves which are edible, and they taste, honestly, you know, normally, depending on the time of year, if I do a walk through the gardens, I give people a taste, and the descriptions of the taste vary from garlic, onion, bacon chips, stock cubes. Right, you get the picture, a kind of a salty, garlicky taste. And they're really delicious. You can eat them raw or cooked. And there's a few restaurants in Melbourne that actually, Chinese restaurants that serve this up with eggs, because I've had 2 students over the years send me photos of menus where they're in a Chinese restaurant. Very obscure, but genuinely an unusual edible.
And a beautiful plant in the landscape, actually.
Very beautiful in spring. Let's go check out the bamboo.
For all you panda bears out there.
What fans?
Panda bears.
Well, that's right, define edible landscape.
Beautiful.
So this is Bambusa old hamii, and this is a major structural bamboo used for scaffolding in Southeast Asia, and possibly even in, I don't know, southern China. But it's also one of the main canning bamboos, so you eat the shoots. So there's one here, Sash, you probably, there you go. So
wow,
you could harvest that and eat it. Now, of course, the zoo in Melbourne has a massive planting of these now. So when they did their, I think it was the Indonesian village idea for the elephant area. So you've got these huge groves of it now. So, you know, a lot of people still have an incredible fear of bamboo because they think it's going to take over their garden. But there's 2 types, the clumping and the spreading bamboos. This is a clumper. So even though these things are at least 6, 7, 8 meters tall, this planting is 20 years old and it hasn't really spread very far. So this is not going to take over your garden. And yet, look at this, this is a cone. This is a beautiful young shoot here. In fact, it's had a really good year.
you can actually see the top of that one there. That's right. Where it ends, the light green.
And that's growing rapidly. That'll probably even keep growing during winter. So I guess the point is that I'm trying to sort of get you thinking about what would be a really imaginative use of open space where we could actually say we could grow bamboo in our parks and gardens for, you know, for trellises, for use by the community as a kind of agroforestry. We could even grow enough to actually eat. So, you know, it may be a bit speculative. Just for those of you who know your plants or are interested, that's hosta, famous ornamental plant. That's not doing so well because it's got the competition from the bamboo. That's a yummy ornamental edible. Actually harvested as a crop in Japan.
No way.
Yeah, Hosta, look it up, hosta. And I grow it sometimes, I eat it like asparagus. It's yummy. I mean, you guys walk through the gardens, I hope, and enjoy them. So, you know, keep in mind when you're here, I guess don't take it for granted. Like, it takes a lot of cultural effort to bring plants into the landscape, to garden them, to create these zones, and just keep asking yourself the question: should we have more spaces like this in our cities? You know, factoring in the cost. You know, can we have nice things, or maybe we can't have nice things? So we're in a really shady part of the gardens here. In fact, we have an indigenous species used as the dominant grass in this lawn here, which is Microceras lanceolata. And in this shady area, we have a fairly rare citrus myrtifolia, which is, and there's none on it at the moment. Actually, none at all. But this does produce it's one of the ingredients in Canotto. which is liqueur, right?
Mm-hmm.
And someone sussed this out, either a former student or a member of the public, and so we often have to, fight to beat that person or persons to pick the fruit. Oh, here we go. Look at this, Sash.
Oh, there we go.
That's got the cupboard, Dennis.
Hello.
That's right.
Hello. Clearly, someone's stuck inside.
Right.
That's a very productive branch.
Really interesting that this is just not a separate bush, is it?
No.
Or maybe it could be that it's getting more light.
That's gorgeous.
But again, just think of this. This is a very diverse, multi-species, multi-layered landscape. And there you have it. You have a productive citrus tree. So I think we'll look at the macadamia now and then finish up. I'll walk backwards, Sash.
Sorry, my photography is probably a little shaky. But in these COVID times, we do what we can.
Bush, bash, sash.
Say it again?
Bush, we might have to bush bash, sash.
Sounds good, Chris.
But look, this is there's two macadamias here. I think it's integrifolia. So there's two main edible species of macadamia, Macadamia integrifolia, Macadamia tetraphylla, and there's hybrids too. But we'll go, what I want to show you is the context in which it's growing, or the growing situation, because it's
Can we go around this way?
Yeah, we'll go around this way. We'll go and look at it underneath the Agathis robusta.
They really are very special gardens, aren't they? Just talking to myself. Ooh.
So this is Agathis robusta. It's a Queensland kauri. It's an Australian, conifer, Gondwanan conifer. So, so this is as close to an actual forest atmosphere as you get in the gardens. And it's actually come up close. This is actually a different species, believe it or not. But look. That macadamia is growing right next to this gigantic tree. You could actually mill this agathis and make money on the timber. That's how big it is. Now, this is under drip irrigation, so it's getting an input to make it grow. And you might say that's all very well, but I keep banging on about the need for irrigation. That's right. To make this tree productive, you need to give it inputs. And sometimes it's prolific. And not at the moment, but about 2 years ago we had a very wet winter, and I don't know if that was the cause, but so the autumn of 2018, this tree was covered. I think students picked about 30 or 40 kilos of macadamias, which may not actually be that much when it comes to a commercial crop, really, I guess. But for this tree, it was good. And up here, Sash, there's
oh, yep.
There's some there.
I don't know
so
if you
again,
guys can see that.
you can grow macadamias in Melbourne. So I guess the point is, you put it in better growing conditions. Not growing next to a giant rainforest tree. Maybe. Oh, here we go.
You got some more?
Yeah.
There we go. Oh, it smells.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah. So that's actually. That's fun. So it's in the same family as Banksias, Proteaceae.
There's more. A among the leaves. They're a bit hard to see at this point. There we go, a few more up there.
So, yeah, well that was a bit of a rush tour of just a few things that are edible in the garden. So when you come back, or you can walk through them now, just keep in mind that we'll reiterate the whole point. Complexity, diversity, so high aesthetic value, very lovely to walk around, so good for sort of your mental health. But we could have that, and we could have edibility as well. So get out there and design and manage those gardens.